So I wanted to do a very fast backstory to the scene we're going to be sketching from. While I've been drawing people holding up their smartphones, I've discovered that there's a few poses which are really typical. So the woman holding with the hat, holding up her phone there, the bent elbow thing is something you see when someone's photographing something that's outside of them, that's not a selfie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's see. So you can see these two people at the foot of David are both holding up bent elbows.
Mm-hmm.
And here's some more bent elbows. And it's
Mm-hmm.
almost always two hands if someone is photographing something outside of themselves. But if it's a selfie, it's a bent elbow with one hand.
Mm-hmm.
So so after seeing all these people in Florence taking photos, selfies, and smartphone photos of David, I thought that I would pick the most common tourist attraction in my city of San Francisco, which is the Golden Gate Bridge. So I did a virtual tour on Google Street View of the points of view of the bridge and looked for where I could see people taking photos. And while I was looking through this, I kept noticing this weird little shadow in some of them. So this little hard edge shadow. Um, there it is again in this photo. And eventually I realized that that was the Google Street View person who wasn't in a car. He was hand holding a camera. So here at the bottom of this one, you can see the head and the camera, which is up above the head. And sometimes you see people looking at the camera. So this woman on the left is clearly staring at the weird guy with the Google Street View thing over his head while everybody else is taking photos. And finally, I found
Oh.
this shadow in the sand, and it looks like this thing is really heavy, like it's this big backpack they have to wear. And this person was clearly laboring along the soft sand, carrying this heavy thing. And I started feeling really sorry for the Street View person. And at one point, I actually got a good profile, and I can't tell if it's male or female. So this is going to be a person, and it looks like they have glasses, and who knows. So this is this anonymous shadow figure. And so I went along the path along the cliffs on Google Street View to the lead up to the scene, which I want to sketch today, and follow this shadow all the way along. And I don't know if they're even supposed to get the shadow in the view, but I kept seeing it. And it looks like at one point the photographer took out their phone and made a phone call as they were walking along. I thought, this must get really, really boring to walk all over this heavy pack. And, maybe making a phone call is something that keeps it interesting. So anyway, here we are coming up to the view and coming up the steps. And these two women on the left had just a great view. And so I decided that I would sketch them. If you're looking at the GPS yourself, you can decide to get the Golden Gate Bridge in it, or you can decide just to sketch these two people holding up their phones. And again, you can see that bent elbow thing. And I'll just flip ahead a little bit to, as the person was walking away, this guy gave the Google photographer a thumbs up. So that made me feel better that this person was actually had a real presence and was being noticed as a person.
Mm, that's cute.
Okay, so we can stop sharing, and I will
Thank you.
go and
Thank you.
try
Thank
and
you
sketch.
for being, yeah, you were like a detective, like
I know.
on a trail or something.
Anyway, it's something that we never think about when we're sketching these scenes, is that there's actually a person there, usually in a car, but on this path, the person was walking along and being noticed by the people who were being photographed. Okay, so
there's one aspect of
I recently discovered Posca markers from James Hobbs's demo at the Edmonds Sketcher Fest, where I saw Eleanor. And I've been really enjoying exploring what they do, because I'm normally a watercolor painter, and these are so different from what I normally do that it's forced me to think freshly and try some new things. So I can get a clean piece of paper here. So the other thing is that's nice about these is that they're very forgiving. Let me get that centered. That you can screw up a lot and have opaque stuff to go over the top. So it's actually made it possible for me to be fresh in a way that I haven't, or be not careful in a way that I am when I'm working in watercolor and I have to get it more or less right the first time.
If anyone has questions for Laurie as she works, you can put them in the chat and we will relay them to her when there's a appropriate moment.
I realized at one point that I was terrible at drawing shoes. So every time I went on a bus for the next few weeks, I took up my sketchbook and drew all the shoes that I could see. And it was a very helpful exercise.
Can you move the paper up a little bit? Perfect, nice. Yeah, we almost lost seeing your very nice shoes. It is so different from your watercolor stuff, but I
Yeah.
love the looseness, like the fat line that still captures the pose and those bent elbows.
It started up a bit too high, but it will be all right. It will be what it will be.
Sorry, we have a first question in the chat, and it's from Sophie asking, do you store your markers in an upright position? Do they bleed or dry out?
You know, I'm still fairly new at this. I've only been using these since July. So I haven't had many dry out yet. And if anybody has any experience with this, I would love to know about it.
Yeah, like I would suggest to store acrylic markers in a like horizontally and not vertically.
Mhm.
I think I read that somewhere.
Yeah.
And if they do dry out, like what I looked that up on the Posca website once, and it said if the tip is dry, to put it in a glass of water overnight. And like that has worked for me if it wasn't like completely
Oh, okay.
clogged, let's
A
say.
glass of water, like submerge it, or just like put the
It
tip.
doesn't say. I just used like a little so that the tip was submerged,
Mhm.
and it worked out fine for me. It didn't bleed a lot into the water. It just like softened up the tip.
Okay, maybe I'll try that with some of mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think like
So,
Posca has like replaceable tips, but some other
Yeah.
brands do, where you can like replace them.
Yeah, Posca, not the most environmentally friendly
no,
marker.
No.
yes.
It's fun to just draw with them as like a line maker. I feel like people use them a lot for like more painterly approaches. But the line itself is very nice.
It is.
Now you have so using the two grays, it looks like.
Yeah, so I've got a gray and a black. And I just discovered this
Oh.
morning that my black marker, my small black marker, is running out of ink. So I'll have to try that thing. So I'm using the big marker. Got to get the black screen in there. And I've been trying to keep to a limited palette. And certainly my drawings come out best when I do that. But And the nice thing is that this blue marker is kind of running out, which makes it good for the denim. Although probably I should try and make it flood to recharge it. Something that's been fascinating me as I look at crowds of tourists is how much people are kind of like tribes. So often in any given group, they'll be wearing very similar clothing. So these two women are pretty much dressed the same in black tops and blue jeans.
They really are. They really are.
Okay, so with the background, the question is, should I keep going with Poscas or should I switch to watercolor? This is something I keep changing my mind about what to do with Poscas. Because there's sort of a purity in what James Hobbs does of just sticking with the Poscas all the time and keeping with line. But I also like the way that watercolor will work with it and kind of do this almost stained glass effect.
Ooh, I want to see that.
Yeah,
And
that
also
sounds exciting.
the watercolor's kind of a lot faster to work with than trying to fill in this big page with Poscas. So I think I'm going to go to
You just haven't found the right size marker yet.
maybe not. Yes, they get really big, really, really big.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me bring in some watercolor and big brush. Okay, so that's fairly greeny water. And I love that I can just go over the whole thing. Maybe not that,
Mm-hmm.
but that I don't have to leave white space. Oh, you can see the Posca's bleeding a little. So I did this playing around with Poscas when I was in Australia recently with Liz Steele. And Liz, being Liz, of course, immediately started experimenting and started putting water in all the Poscas and seeing what interesting pigment things they did. And I have not actually caught up with that level of experimentation yet. And I'm working on some fairly lightweight, inexpensive paper, so it'll hopefully dry really fast. Oh, I've just lost, there we go. Okay, so let's just, oops, it looks like it is quite a bit. Isn't that nice?
Ooh.
Work with that.
Yeah. Yeah, normally the acrylic markers dry so fast that it doesn't
Yeah.
happen much, but maybe
Isn't
yeah,
it
when the
interesting?
tip is so big or something.
Yeah. It looked really juicy.
Okay, let's
Yeah.
see if
I
we can
can
load that up
blot
there.
it up. Oh, you're so confident with the watercolor wash. It's very satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
Well,
Ooh, look at that mixing.
Yeah. I like how the blue watercolor picks up like the denim pants.
Ah, yeah.
And, yeah.
well, looks like this is getting kind of out of control, but that's actually okay. Oh, look, it's still bleeding. Okay,
Yeah,
so let's see if
wow.
we can use that to get that texture in the sand. And just going to put some watercolor to fill in the sweaters. And then once it's dry, I've got the choice of going in and putting in some opaque stuff over the skin.
Laurie, can you move your paper a bit to the
Oh,
center?
sorry.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
So
Yeah.
it looks like the Posca is going over this stuff just fine. Now let's see if we can get an opaque thing to cover up. Yeah, I think that's a little bit too wet. Oh, and the shadows. Gotta put in the shadows. Okay, so problem is that we can't see all of the shadow there.
Yeah, there's a big
So we're just,
distortion.
unfortunately, she's gone off the page, so I can just kind of make it up. And it looks like there's a little bit of a shadow for how she's holding up her camera. And I'll just change the angle of the shadow a bit so I can get a bit more of it on the page.
Lori, do you ever use Copic markers or like alcohol markers?
You know, I used to way back in the day. I trained as a graphic designer in
Oh yeah.
Australia. And this was in the pre-computer days when you wanted to mock something up, you had to use the alcohol markers. Although the Copic ones aren't as stinky as those were.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put a
Did you
little bit.
prefer the Posca markers nowadays?
I'm fascinated by the opacity because it's something that I haven't had in watercolor.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see if we can. Okay, it's drying pretty quickly. Well, I think I'll just go over that white area.
I love the scribbly shadows.
Okay, so this is way too wet at the moment to take up much of the Posca marker. Okay, so at this point, I could do another version of it with a different medium, or we could just move on to the next stage.
Well, you've only been working for 20 minutes. We've had, usually the demos do go longer. So if you want to do like a small one,
Sure.
10-minute dessert course, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
What medium will she choose?
Um, So let's see what happens with a straight watercolor version of this. Just a contrast with the Poscas.
Do you do this a lot where you do the same subject with different mediums?
Yeah, because I was a commercial illustrator and had to be very predictable for years for my work. When I retired from that, I wanted to be as unpredictable as possible and kind of not know. And I found that I did the best, freshest work if I changed materials a lot. So when I'm doing a life drawing session, I will switch mediums every couple of poses just to stay as off balance as possible. And for the same reason, I don't like working in sketchbooks because it feels too performative. It feels like I have to make everything looking good. And I love the idea of being able to fail many times and in many different ways.
Very interesting philosophy.
So this book that I'm working in now is a, let's get it. It has all kinds of different papers in it, and you can take the papers in and out. So you can take them out and put them back in again. And it means that I can look at the scene that's in front of me and think what's the thing which really excites me about that, and then pick the right kind of paper for what I want to do. And I don't know, stay off balance and mess up a lot.
Yay.
Okay, so now I'm getting a watercolor pencil so that I can draw into this. Okay,
Oh, can you move it up and to the right a bit?
let's see. Is that
That's
okay?
Yeah. Watercolor pencil. Which Inktense pencil are you using?
You know, it's a random one that I picked up. I don't like Inktense so much because they're so strong, and this is a Derwent medium one.
Oh, you're right. The little thing on the end looks exactly like the Derwent stripe.
But it's the same brand then, isn't it?
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
but it's
Cool.
not quite as overpowering as the Inktense can be.
Gotcha. But it's so nice to draw it on the wet paper.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the Posca marker where it's just so bold of a line. You can't hide anything in it.
Yeah, and it's just so juicy. Like it's
So
so,
juicy.
yeah, it's so yummy.
It's rich.
Yeah.
and you can see that the paper is drier here, so it's not quite so rich anymore.
But the variation is also very cool. The unpredictableness we're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah. It
And
looks
I
so
love-
beautiful with your watercolor shapes. I like this a lot.
I also really like this idea of changing up the materials and kind of like forcing yourself to change the materials all the time. It's like you're constantly pushing yourself out of some sort of comfort zone.
yeah.
Mhm.
And you know, I spent my whole career being predictable and comfortable, and now's the time to just try stuff and have fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let us. So they've both got that probably, is it henna in their hair or some sort of bleach thing?
Let me check.
They are so matchy.
It looks like it's still bleeding a bit.
Nice brush. Looks like a dagger brush.
Yeah, it's one of the rosemary daggers.
Oh, I've heard of those.
And there's a synthetic dagger and a half sable dagger, and I like them both for different things. So the synthetic one is a little bit stiffer. Okay, let's get that shadow in. And we're going to pretend that it's going a little bit more up, just so it'll fit on the page. And also because I can't see what it's doing, so I can make
Yay, creative freedom.
Yeah. Their little loopy arms.
Okay.
We're about 2 minutes away from the 30-minute mark to give you an idea of time.
Okay, well,
Yep.
I think I'm just about done. So
Yep.
Feel like we got 2 demos for the price of 1. I'm
Yeah.
impressed, Laurie.
Really, no one's ever done 2.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
No.
And no one's ever done
Okay.
a presentation
And a
either.
little bit of texture.
Yeah.
The bar is very high now.
Yes, it is.
Whoa, big brush at the end.
Well, I just want a little bit of texture. Oh, look, it's bleeding off the. Okay.
Cool.
Well,
Could
and
you center it in the thing?
should I hold it up to the, let's see.
Yeah, that'd be great. Great.
So often when I do a second one, it's much looser and freer and better. And often I'll do that when I'm doing watercolors too. I'll labor for so long over the first one, but then I finally understand the scene, so I can then go in and do it really fast and much better.
I can relate to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you so much.
You.
Yay!